Yeah. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Xavier, Dr. Sharad, and all the attendees of this roundtable. Uh, Thank you so much for joining us. Uh, I would like to quickly guide you through what will be three presentations. I will present on the idea of universal basic income, the advocacy of Basic Income Earth Network, and the work of the Asia Pacific Regional Hub. And then we have Dr. Sharath here, who is the chair of Basic Income Earth Network. He would then be discussing about some evidence from pilots from India. He's been leading three very prominent pilots in India, and is associated with so many more across the world. But he would today be discussing about some evidence on what universal basic income can really do. And then we have Xavier Bernardo here. He would talk about developments on basic income and UBI for farmers, especially come back and have a much more focused discussion about basic income in and for Nepal. Nepal is a very interesting context because it's one of the first countries in the map of social protection to cover people, especially with the social protection for senior citizens. But as we'll see today, we've started there, but over time we didn't really cover everyone, or the coverage is really, in a way, reinforcing inequality. So we will look at the Nepal's context with the need for universal basic income, the scope, and the potential. This discussion would largely be led by Ramnarayan Sreshta and Vijeta Sreshta. And then we have Guy Standing, who will share his thoughts through a hybrid mode. And then we will have a much longer facilitated discussion. So throughout this roundtable, we really want an interactive conversation. Really, we don't want to lecture anything. We just want to have a conversation. The purpose of this roundtable largely is to generate interest, discussion, and debate about this potential and transformative idea called universal basic income. We feel that it has all the transformative potential to bring dignity, freedom, and choice to individuals from anywhere on the spectrum of economy, or on the spectrum of social inequality, or anything. So with those introductory remarks, I would like to plunge right into my presentation on universal basic income, BN, and APAC. I would like to share three stories very quickly, and these three stories have been taken from Human Rights Watch, a report from Human Rights Watch on the case of Nepal last year. On this, we see that the social registry surveyors visit a lady's house to check if she really is deserving of social protection, and whether she is eligible to receive government's benefits. But then her son says, why does everyone need to know whether we are poor or not? Using all the opportunities, all the revenue of the state, but not really giving back anything or something like that. So there is very levels of stigma attached to welfare. And then there is political class which tries to create clientelism by saying, I am giving something, you then vote for me, and then it becomes a cyclical circle of creating clients and a political class. And then in this whole process, the dignity of the individual is taken away. So every time you target, you try to find someone, whether they're poor, whether they're deserving or not, you're really reinforcing inequality by reinforcing their poverty again and again. Next slide. That in the process of governments and states trying to support people, mostly the needy people, there is a lot of targeting that happens. And this targeting comes at an extreme cost, because the the bureaucracy, the public service delivery, especially in the context of South Asia and Global South, is not so efficient in how they target, how they see who should get the benefits. Now, in that process of targeting, a cycle of exclusion starts again. In fact, inability sort of targeting exclusion creates another round of exclusion. And this one is a fruit seller from near Patan Mangal Bazaar. He says that there is unreliable food prices all the time, and sometimes he's able to sell, sometimes he's not. 10 people come and ask for price, only 2 buy. There is a lot of precarity in earning and therefore in the income. So if you look at the rural context across the world and more so in Nepal or even across Asia Pacific or South Asia more so, there is a lot of income starvation. There's no cash in the hands of people. They're trying to do whatever work they can, but they're not able to make ends meet, or whatever they make is only sufficient for a square meal. They're not able to support their children's education or even think about tomorrow. They're just stuck in thinking about only today. These are quick 3 stories, I would like to introduce the idea of universal basic income in these contexts. In the first story, we have seen that there is conditionality. In the second one, we have seen that there is targeting, and in the third, we have seen that basic income is it has 5 principles, and these principles are: one is that it should be universal, that everyone in a political territory should receive basic income. It's opposed to targeting. And then it should be conditional, which means once you give the money, you should not lay upon any conditions that people should use this only for education or only for this or so on and so forth. People know what to do with their money, they know more about their lives, and they are the best persons to decide what they want to do that money with. And therefore, universal basic income also creates a space of trust, that we trust you. We not acting like a paternal state, that I know what you need better and therefore I will tell you how you should spend your money. And the third is periodic. Now in the third story we've seen that there is unreliability of incomes. A periodic, it could be monthly, fortnightly, anything, but it should be periodic, that they can use it, that money. So there are schemes that give lump sum amounts. Instead of that, we argue that it should be periodic. If that periodicity exists, there will be a sense of stability, a sense of security, that no matter what, every month or every fortnightly I receive something, and that sort of stability will give people the confidence to think beyond today and take larger steps. And it should be cash as opposed to in-kind transfers or coupons. For example, the governments can say, we will give you this card and you can use this card in designated shops or in these establishments. That's not how it should. Not who work, but whose work is not recognized as work, etc. Or who do not have financial autonomy or independence. Then everyone will start receiving that sort of financial independence. So these are the 5 principles that Basic Income Earth Network defines a universal basic income as. So what is Basic Income Earth Network? Basically, around 40 years ago, in 1983, 3 young research scholars in the University of Leuven in Belgium, Paul-Marie Boulanger, Philip Defite, and Philip Van Perrin. The 3 of these people came together to organize themselves as a small working group to work and publicize this radical and sort of utopian concept of universal basic income. And then they've written an essay and sent to an essay contest about work, and they've won an amount, a prize for that essay. And then they used that money to organize a congress like this, and they invited 60 people and that has happened. That Congress, the first Congress, led to the formation of a network called Basic Income European Network. Next slide. And this is the picture. Those are the three young gentlemen. And what started as that small network in Belgium then 40 years ago has grown into a huge network of academics, activists, researchers, artists advocating for the idea of universal basic income. And in the process of these 40 years, a newsletter has been sent every 3 months, and a huge network has been built. And every 2 years, a congress was organized until 2000. And then around the early 2000s, we realized that this network is no longer only centered in Europe, that this is becoming more a global idea. And then it has become Basic Income Earth Network in Brazil Congress. And from then on, every year European Congress is held. So we've recently started a hubs project to penetrate this idea into the global south, and we have started 3 hubs: one in Latin America, one in Africa, and the other in Asia Pacific. And I coordinate the BN Asia Pacific hub, and we cover the scope from Pakistan, Afghanistan till Papua New Guinea. Next, and all these countries come under this region. Next, and in this region so far we have affiliates and allies in all these countries. I would just like to mention, recently a month ago we wrote a petition to United Nations Peace Building Office, UNPDSO, and in a span of a couple of weeks we sent it around to all our allies and said, look, we want to write to the United Nations saying you could include UBI as a peace building architecture. And then quickly in a span of 2 weeks we received 125 endorsements from 45 countries, and that's the testament for how covered we are, and how expanded our affiliates are in. Next. So in this region there are 3 pilots that are ongoing. One is all the 3 are happening right now in India. These are led by research and civil society organizations. Work 3 is happening in Hyderabad with garbage collectors. Project Deep is happening in the western part of India but they do a lump sum cash transfer. They're given like 60,000 Indian rupees per household, not individual, and then they check what it can do, and they are evaluating their project. But they were more focused on whether it could create assets and everything, and they're coming out with extraordinary results. And this project, Basic Income and Care for Transgender Persons, is a very interesting project. Basically, 10 participants from the transgender persons community have been taken into the project, and everybody received 7,000 Indian rupees per month per year. And along with this, care workshops were also conducted recently with pilots across the world. A plus element is also being added. So all of these pilots are bringing great results. Next. These are the government-led pilots happening in this region, in South Korea and the Mekong province. And if you look at how cash transfers happen in this region, we could understand that there is an architecture of conditional cash transfers happening, and then cash-based policies. Now, instead of giving in-kind assistance to people, governments are now trying more to give cash-based transfers. Especially in COVID, we've seen that across the world, governments have quickly started cash transfer programs to support people in that vulnerable situation. But after COVID, we thought that might continue or get consolidated, but unfortunately, it's going back again. But we see that governments across the world are understanding the importance and potential of cash-based policy. So while those exist, with an emerging interest in the idea of basic income, there is more longer way to go to institutionalize and advance the basic income system. For that, the elements of unconditionality and universality have to be included. Otherwise, as long as targeting is there, as long as conditionality is a core part of these policies, it doesn't become a basic income, it doesn't become a universal basic income. Now, in that whole idea, I would like to mention India and South Korea because they're advancing very fast. The mainstream political parties in these two countries are talking about universal basic income in their manifestos. They're saying that if we win, we will include some design of universal basic income. For example, next slide. This is the architecture of how cash transfers happen. For children, you give child or education benefit, and then you have unemployment or sickness benefit. Women receive maternity benefit, disability benefit. I think sort of the last and the middle ones exist strongly in Nepal as well. And then you have old age pension. So this is how it is divided. However, the recent ones target women more, even if it is basic income. In the next slide, we could see that in India, all these government schemes exist. All of them, largely Behna Yojana, Lakshmi Bhandar scheme in Kolkata, West Bengal, Mahalakshmi scheme, Rohalakshmi scheme. There is in Tamil Nadu there is a scheme called Housewives Dignity Scheme, something like that. So now all of these are targeted at women and they are given to women. So this kind of evolving cash-based policy is emerging over the years. Next one. So in this interesting architecture, we would like to put the idea of giving the cash to everybody. In our region, under Asia Pacific's operations, we recently launched a coalition for basic income in India about 6 months ago. We would like to do something like this here in Nepal. Next one. In the previous slide, we have written recently, Dr. Muhammad Yunus has become the chief advisor to the Republic of Bangladesh. So we've written an open letter to him saying that in this context, it's very imminent to consider this idea. And we've even given estimates of how much a universal basic income can cost in the overall GDP, budget, etc. And we've projected what it can do over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. In the next one, we could see we've written a explainer for Malaysia, saying what it can do, what it is, and how you could include it in the current welfare schema. So again, we would want to do something like this here in Nepal with all of you. In the next one of our representatives from Basic Income Japan has visited His Holiness Dalai Lama and given him a representation about the idea of universal basic income. We've organized the TGPIC workshop, the TGPIC project I was talking about. We've organized the workshop in Hyderabad in India. Next one. We are present across social media. There are these brochures placed outside on table. You could collect all of them. This is about the TGPIC. This is the Malaysia explainer. This is the open letter to Dr. Muhammad Yunus. This brochure talks about the activity of basic BN APAC Hub. This one talks about BN as a network. And then this one has all the insights about work-free pilot, which I think Sharad will talk prominently. So please pick these, please follow us on social media. Through this roundtable, we would like to have a facilitated discussion. Please feel free to ask as many questions and share your comments. We would like to listen more from you and start an evolving discussion on basic income for everyone in Nepal. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Dr. Sharad.
Share our thoughts or experiences about universal basic income. In BN, we say that basic income, rich countries say basic income may be, universal basic income may be useful for poor countries, not for us. We have a very good welfare system. Poor countries say this is for the rich countries because they have enough money. So wherever I go, everybody says that it is relevant for them, not for us. Because basic income and its unconditionality is something very counterintuitive in our society because our industrial ethic says that you will not get anything free. You will not get anything. Are there conditions? So one politician asked me once that this is a very bad idea. Our Indian politician, this is a very bad idea. People will become lazy. They will become drunkards. So I asked him, sir, how many children you have? 3 children. Where are they? They're studying abroad. They're all in the US, very well settled. Sir, you gave them with conditions or without conditions, all the money you gave them? Why should I put conditions to them? They're my children. I gave everything unconditionally. Have they become drunkards? How can they become drunkards? They are my children. So this whole idea of, in BN, that BN's standard definition is that it has, the basic definition of a basic income is, it has 5 characteristics. One is it's universal. Everybody should get in a given territory. Not all citizens, but everybody living there, normal resident. Because citizens live abroad, non-citizens live in the country. It's periodic, every month. It's individual. Individual should be well, not the head of the household. It is cash only, not anything like that. And most important, 0. And then this, how much you want to participate in the, decide what to do. But you should get like the way you get oxygen, like the way you get rain, the way you get sunlight. There are no conditions to that, right? Just imagine if you had to buy oxygen. Rich will have more oxygen and poor will have less oxygen. Can you believe that? Anyway, so in Madhya Pradesh, and now currently we have just concluded a pilot study in Hyderabad, where I live. John and I live in Hyderabad. That all these results have been very, very encouraging. You can't believe that normally governments do not trust the poor. That's why they have inspectors to inspect them, to see whether they are spending the money properly or not. So, but actually when you see the field data, when you see ethnography that we have done, please come in, please come. We got to hear from the field tell us that people are extremely responsible about themselves. They are the best judges about what they should be doing with their money. So that's what comes through in all the studies. Shall we go to the next one? There are many slides, but I will try to rush through. This is just to give an idea of the garbage collectors. You can play that. Latest. Bank accounts, we have everybody in a given slum. We have drawn a boundary around the slum and said that everybody will get it, whether they are waste collectors or not. Every man, woman and child, they got it. That's why in a city also, we found that you can actually draw a boundary of a slum. It's monthly, we gave every month. It's individual, everybody got it. And for children, money went to mother's account. And it's completely unconditional at the supply side and also at the spending end of the, Let's quickly run through this thing. We have given to about 272, actually it's 295 households in 5 different slums. Come on, let's go ahead, yeah. So basically in this study, we have assessed along these 6 parameters or 7 parameters. What have they done with assets? Have they purchased new assets? What kind of assets? Family profile, and then social networks. What basic income for 18 months we have given, what it has done to their freedom, time use, labor choice, and expenditures. Let's go ahead. We have done. Let's go ahead. We have done 3 surveys, which is the baseline before we started the giving the money, and midline after 9 months. and again end line after 9 months. And now we are going to do after we have stopped, after 1 year we are going back to do a post end line to see whether those effects that we saw during those 18 months, have they stayed or have they disappeared? So as long as you give money, those effects will be there. After that, have there been any behavioral changes in people? Has it impacted the way they plan and the way they think, and what kind of? Now, yeah, well, how did you use your money? You can see that majority of money has gone into household consumption. Then to medical expenses and education and savings, paying off debt and investing in business. Time and again and again and again, in fact, in our recent Congress in the UK, we had another study. I couldn't imagine that exactly this kind of results we saw from Peru as well, and also from other studies. We see that people, okay, this money is an assured money. We gave 1,000 rupees per person and 500 rupees to the child. Every month they got. So a family of 3 adults and 2 children got about 4,000 Indian rupees. So 4,000, and when you know that you're going to get 4,000 rupees every month, definitely, then you say, okay, this money I will use for the household expenditure. The money that I earn, the wage, most of them are self-employed, they put it into their business, or they use it for medical expenses and all that. So we asked them what are the 3 most important effects. You can see here, and food sufficiency. I mean, I didn't expect that there is food insufficiency in an urban area. I can imagine in the rural areas, but I imagine that with the food security program in India we have, that food insufficiency would not be there, but there is food insufficiency. So it is improved nutrition, people bought better food, more food, improved health of my family, improved quality of education of my children. So you can see these are the most important changes that we have seen. Food sufficiency. You can see in the baseline, 31% said that they have enough food. Okay? In only 31%. This is quite shocking to me. And then 67% said in the midline after 9 months, that almost doubled, more than doubled, that they said that they are able to eat sufficiently. And then in the end line, it has kind of stabilized at 60%. Yeah, let's go ahead. If you look at health, you can see that the health also has had positive effects on people. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Usually, I mean, I don't know in Nepal, but in India, people's perception, to what extent it is correct, may not be correct all the time, but they think government schools are inefficient, government schools do not deliver good education, quality education, whereas the private schools deliver quality education. So their aspiration is that I should send my child to an English medium private school. That is the aspiration. So the moment you have some resources available to you, you want to shift your child from government school to private school. But sometimes government schools, like hostels are there for scheduled castes, scheduled tribe, backward castes. We have government hostels. So those hostels, people find it very useful because children will get food and they can get education and hostel. So here you see that there's a shift, very, very minor shift from government to private. Yeah. So we asked, is it this shift, is it because of the cash transfers that you receive? Is that your attribution is very, very high? You can see partly yes, because what we gave is not so much money, but they are able to borrow here, there, and with the relatives and all that. Go ahead. Yeah, this is a very, very important. The people we were dealing with are, they are not employed by the corporation, municipality. They actually, they collect their fees from the households, where they collect the waste and take it to the dumping yard. Now, they are constantly living a life of borrowing. They borrow today, they repay after 5 days. They borrow today, there is a repayment schedule of every day. When they get their wage, whatever they get, they pay. So the money lenders come to the slum on specific days to offer money to these people. So you can see that not new borrowings. Yeah. See, from 49 it became 28, almost half, and this has gone up to. So what is the implication of that? That from loan sharks, where they charge like 200% interest, huge amount of interest, that to per month interest, sometimes per week interest, they shift to borrowing from friends and relatives. And when friends and relatives know in the same neighborhood that you are definitely going to get every month, you have assured money of 4,000-5,000 rupees. It's not your bank, your rupees, but its actual value is so much, several times more than that, because they don't have to pay normal interest that they pay. So those are the multiplier effects that we see constantly in this. Yeah, you can see that attribution to decision to take a loan is it because you are more likely to, okay, I'm going to get this money, so let me borrow some more money for my business. Yeah. Have you paid off loan? Yes. People have, and attribution is also very high to the basic income. Because of basic income, I'm able to pay off my loans and not borrow at very high rates. Okay, this is also people also say. So I think I would like to stop there because we can go into more and more evidence, but the evidence is so compelling. In fact, if you see in the rural areas, we see that the entire local area, the entire economy, local economy gets stimulated with the injection of so much of cash. Okay, usually in such remote places, in villages, there is a scarcity of cash. People don't have cash. That's why the loan sharks become so prominent in a village, because they lend money at a very high rates. So usually people borrow money from the landlord and repay through their labor. So, but when you have an assured basic income, people break that loop, the vicious cycle of borrowing at very high rates. So I will stop there, and let us move to Xavier's experience in Spain.
I think I will not go a lot in detail, just a short presentation in order we can keep in time with our agenda, because the most important issue probably this morning will be your discussion after the break. So it's not going to be long, just to share with you a bit about our experience in Spain. Myself, I've been working for the last 30 years in international development that has to do with socioeconomic development in the global south and issues about poverty and work and this type of things. So during my life I've been working more or less in 30 countries, mainly in Africa, most of them in Africa, but also in Latin America, Middle East, India, only in Maharashtra district for several years, and this year it's my first time in Nepal. I came in March for a first work, and I keep doing something here in Nepal with some colleagues who are from the same consultancy group than me. So I'm quite new here in Nepal. So in all my life in development work, I've been working all these type of areas that Sarah was telling you, that the basic income in Hyderabad is making a difference. Food security, not so much in health, a lot in education, credit systems, agriculture development, entrepreneurship, all these type of things that are common in social development in any country. And I always say the same, it's very difficult. This is a difficult job to really help people to make changes in their life. Because we know poverty and insecurity and so on put the people in conditions really very hard to change. And we know that across the years that this is difficult through projects and the work of the NGOs to really have a strong impact in the places you are working. And recently I had an interview in Spain, and they were asking me, after so many years of development work in countries and so on, investing money, why they're still living in a world with so much poverty and this that. And they say, well, we know that this support from NGOs and international development is not the solution. We know that since decades ago. It's nothing new. It's more than 40 years we know. What we need to change are public policies, global policies and public policies in each country. This is what really makes the difference if you really want to tackle strong issues like poverty, inequality and so on. This is nothing new. There is need of a very strong advocacy work to change things and change policies. So I'm sharing this with you to tell you that I've seen along the years, if you rely on working through projects here and there, well, this helps people, sure, depending on the project. This is a contribution to social, sometimes even economic development. But this is not the way you really make a very strong difference in your country. You need something else. That's why I believe that basic income is really a policy that is able to make a significant change wherever you implement this policy. And let me share the case of Spain. Perhaps you prefer I speak like this and there is no noise. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perhaps it's better. If not, there is also, I speak a bit loudly. So, you know, this issue of basic income, I think it's important everywhere. Not only, I think it's a great opportunity for the Global South to consider this as an important driver of social change in your country. You start implementing these policies. That's the case, for example, of India or some in other countries, in South Africa and so on, and you see that this is benefiting people. And you can, okay, so, but it's not only, I really believe that this is a very good policy for the Global South. But also in industrialized countries that they have welfare states, it's very important. For example, in the case in Spain, we have a kind of federal system, and the different regions, they have their own governments. So I'm coming from Barcelona, the region of Catalonia, and in the region of Catalonia, we have nowadays about 25% of the people who are income insecure, who, if they have a serious concern, or they have to pay for, I don't know, suddenly 700 euros because you have a problem, they cannot cope. So 25%, a quarter of our population, is income insecure, and well, some of them having strong problems to meet every month and so on. So, and as in any other country, we have policies to support people with very poor income and so on. This has been in Spain for the last 40 years. In our region in Catalonia, in the 90s, they started a program to support a minimum amount of money for people living in poverty. That was there. But in 2001, well, we have had in Catalonia people, academic people, thinking in the basic income for the last 30 years. Together with after this emergence of this issue in the 80s, at that time also there were academics in Spain going into the issue. In 2001, it was created in Catalonia a network for the basic income. Later, this network expanded to all over Spain. But it started to have, like you are here now, this started in Spain only 20 years ago. So these people started to work together. What they did, of course, if you want to change public policies, you have to go to the politicians, the ones who make the policies. So they started to talk about the different political parties, looking for a window of opportunity. It was in 2001 that there was an opportunity. Well, in Catalonia we have changes in our regional government, sometimes from the left, sometimes more right-oriented and so on. But at that time there was an opportunity to have a left government. And in the left side of our political arena, there are several parties, but there are always some of them very prone to progressive social policies. And at that time, they put into the discussion a proposal in Parliament for a basic income in Catalonia. That was the start of the issue. They start discussing in the Parliament and so on. But they moved to modify, the conclusion was to modify the ancient system to protect the people living in poverty, to improve that policy, advancing somehow towards a kind of basic income. It was in 2002 that in Barcelona it happened, the Congress of BN, this global network, and it was in Barcelona they decided to move from Europe to worldwide. That happened in 2002. So in Barcelona they keep working and in Spain, and they have, in this work they had a better opportunity in 2011. There was a massive social protest in Spain, a lot of people in the streets complaining about the crisis and problems in governance and so on. So that was very strong for some movements to create a social movement for more progressive policies. So basic income was again in the agenda. And it was in 2017 that it came back again in proposals with political parties towards a basic income. Again, it was a possibility with political parties to make progress. And it was again changes in the law in Catalonia to move towards a kind of guaranteed basic income, but still with a lot of conditionality, only for people with very poor means, poverty and so on. Still quite a lot conditional. That was 2017. Later it came the COVID time. During the COVID time, everybody realized, oh my God, how we are going to support people to restore their means of living after such a crisis. So there was again a discussion about basic income. And again in 2021, it was another political window. There was again a negotiation between the political parties to have a government. And these left parties that they are committed since more than 20 years ago in this evolution towards the basic income, they put again the issue as a condition for having a government in this agreement for ruling the country. And at that time, they decided to run a pilot project about full basic income in Catalonia, a kind of experiment that has not been done before in Catalonia. That was at that time, 2021. That was strong in 2022, even there is still an office in the Catalan government to run all this activity about raising awareness and preparing the society for a basic income with a pilot project. It was in 2003 that it was developed the plan. The plan was very technically developed, having a committee, technical committee with academics and social researchers and people skilled in social development in Catalonia, around 15 members of this technical committee working in this plan. There was an international support with a consultancy team involving 12 or 15 people around the world, expert in basic income. Sarah Navarro was a member of that team, so they put a really very nice plan. But okay, this time flies with politicians, and the current government in Catalonia didn't finalize the 4 years. There were again elections, and in these new elections, it has changed the party, the main party ruling the country. Now there are some changes there, and there is some delay in implementing this pilot project and so on. Okay, but this is the logic of politics. We know that there is always ups and downs. But at that time in 22, they made a survey in the Catalan society about this basic income. And the survey was saying that more than 60% of the population was in favor, which is quite good. But the small farmers in Catalonia, they are struggling a lot. It's becoming extremely difficult for them to survive, as you know, in many other countries. So now also government is planning how to support a small farmer, but with a similar mechanism of the type of a basic income. So there are things ongoing, but for me the key lessons of this process in Catalonia is you need people organized and keep raising awareness in the countries, getting always in touch with all these political actors, trade unions, social organizations who are in favor of saying, okay, this is really something we have to move forward, and there are different ways that you can. It probably is not the same process you have to follow in Nepal to introduce a basic income that the process we need to follow in Catalonia. I guess it's not simply copy, cut and paste, but I think we can learn a lot from each other. Well, that was just the intention to share this process. Perhaps later in the discussion we can talk a bit more, but I think it's better we keep on time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
मिनिमम एउटा सपोर्ट गभर्मेन्टले दिने खालको कार्यक्रमहरू हामीले गर्नुपर्छ अथवा गर्न सक्छौँ भन्ने खालको यो पोलिसी आइडिया हो। यसमा चाहिँ बेसिकली अरू कुरा गरेको जस्तै 5वटा चाहिँ बेसिक प्रिन्सिपलको हामीले कुरा गरेका छौँ होइन। 5वटा कुराहरू गर्दै गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो चाहिँ सही होला, पहिला चाहिँ युनिभर्सल हुनुपर्छ, सबैलाई दिनुपर्छ, त्यसैपछि त्यसै गरी इन्डिभिजुअलिटी भन्ने कुरा भयो, सबैलाई हरेक मान्छेलाई दिनुपर्छ भन्ने गरी अरू विभिन्न खालको कुराहरू भयो। अब यो कुराहरू गर्दै गर्दाखेरि के यो हाम्रो देशमा यस्तो खालको आइडिया, पहिले कुरा युनिभर्सल बेसिक इन्कमको कन्सेप्ट नै के छ त, साँच्चीकै यो फिजिबल कन्सेप्ट हो कि होइन त भन्ने कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ उहाँहरूले विभिन्न खाले देशको इक्जाम्पलहरू दिनुभयो, भइरहेको छ भन्ने कुराहरू छ। अब यो अघिल्लोको डिस्कसन अघि यसको हाम्रो के छ भन्ने कुरामा हामी फेरि अगाडि बढाउँला होइन। अहिलेसम्मको जति डिस्कसन भइरहेको छ नि, यसमा चाहिँ तपाईँहरूको केही प्रश्नहरू छ उहाँहरूलाई भन्यो भने एकचोटि प्रश्न अलिकति लिउँ होइन। त्यसपछि यो एकछिन चिया ब्रेक लिउँ, त्यसपछि फेरि हामी एक कुरालाई चाहिँ हाम्रो कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ कहाँ फिट हुनसक्छ, सक्दैन, के रहेछ त भनेर सक्नु होला है। के छ तपाईँहरूको उहाँहरूलाई प्रश्न अथवा केही? डु यु हेभ एनी क्वेसन्स अर एनिथिङ फर शरद भाइ, फर जेभियर, फर जोन?
प्रति महीना दियो होइन, 1000 रुपियाँ प्रति व्यक्ति प्रति महीना। We are supplying 1,000 rupees in India per person for or maybe how you decided that? That's the main criteria. Why we decide only 1,000? Why not more than that? And why not less than that? That's one question. Are you? The second question is, are you willing to say that providing this money or basic let's say pocket money, whatever, how can you differentiate this one with unemployment payment? In countries like America and other places, one who is unemployed, they get unemployment money. Similarly, how you differentiate this one? You are saying that unconditional means without condition they may use in different way. Okay? But there should be a condition that they should earn some money or some assets for their living. Is it like that? How can you differentiate this with unemployment payment and this money, giving money this to? Okay, thank you.
Also looked upon preliminary the impact of cold diesel allowance in Nepal on the food consumption, and with the preliminary results indicate that yes, this it increases the household welfare. That means the old age people use their allowance to let's say consume healthy nutritious diet or say the basic food staples, and it somewhat improves the food security of the marginalized poor household as well. So there is no doubt on the implications or impact of these types of unconditional payment in the countries like Nepal and other developing and developed countries. The question here is we have to look upon the source or the source of this fund, because we are talking about this impact, talking about the global scenario, but in case of the countries like South Asia and other least developed countries, the government or say the supplier sides always talk about the fund. In case of Nepal as well, our current health ministry said that I think Nepal is unable to continue to provide this old age allowance or the security program after 10 years. So they are still insecure about the source, and some are saying that this is increasing at a rapid rate. So in this perspective or in this background, we are talking about this huge fund of money to give to all the peoples of the territory. And on the other side, on the supply side, we talk about these government financial systems or say the sources of this fund. So how can we balance this approach? There is no doubt on this impact, but what can be the source? This from my side. Thank you.
Student. And I personally also have an interest in UBI, but because of that, okay, so my basic concern was that in this field there is not enough evidence as I've read so far. And you provided some evidence, but on the other day I also found some contrary evidence. It was from an article which was referring to a study done in Texas and Illinois in like 1990s, where they kind of mentioned that the effects of UBI weren't exactly what they thought it would be. Like you said, the health benefits or the food security, right? So apparently, according to their findings, I don't know how to with their sources, but according to their findings, the initial improvements in food security disappeared after a certain amount of time. And the people that did not report any increasing access to healthcare, like physical healthcare or mental healthcare. So, like, this is some evidence, but how scalable is it? Like, can we just use this evidence as to conclude that in a general population in countries spanning millions of people, this is applicable? Because I think the sample size is too small to generalize that. And with the contrary evidence as well, how do we move forward with this? And my second question would be, you did mention something about this tackling inequality, right? So my question is, how exactly does it do that? Because if everyone is receiving the same amount of money, it's just like raising the floor, I'd say, right? So if the basic line was here and the basic line is here, the people on the top also go a bit higher. So how exactly does it solve inequality? And if it does do that, how effective is it?
Rupees. Basically, the principle is that a universal basic income, it should not be too high that it creates a kind of like a windfall or a kind of artificiality in life. It should not be too low, which makes it very insignificant. It doesn't make any difference.
If you give like 50 rupees or 100 rupees.
The way we calculated in India was our Indian poverty line, they stopped defining poverty line. They abandoned that whole idea. Our Prime Minister thinks that we should not measure poverty. We should
Eliminate poverty. Can you believe that?
So, we took World Bank's $1.9, I think now it's 2.15 dollar a day per person, per capita expenditure. So we took that, and then, like I said, that we are not eliminating any other allowances people are getting. What we are giving is a top up. So we calculated it to be we are topping up 30% of the World Bank poverty line. That is what we are adding to their life. So that is how determined. But there are also some arguments saying that why 50% to children, which we should give full. In fact, UNICEF that if you are giving adults 1,000, children also have expenses, so children also should get the same amount of money because of child tax. That is the answer for your question. How is it different from unemployment allowance? Unemployment allowance is conditional, that you have to prove that you are unemployed, you have to prove that you are willing to work or something like that. So there is an inspector inspecting you.
It is not universal. It is given during that period, also with several restrictions and conditions. Whereas when we talk about universal basic income, we are talking about that from the moment you are born, you will start getting it till the time you die. So the only condition is that you should be a human being and you should be alive. That's the only condition. So that's the difference between any maternity benefit comes during maternity time. When you have to prove that you are actually delivered in the hospital. So in India we have this thing that in institutional delivery they get 16,000 rupees or something. Where does money come from? I think this is a very, very important question. I can expect this question from the economist. So where is the money coming from? That is, I think, you see, there is a Supreme Court judgment in India which says that who is the owner of this land? We think it's government, right? Unless it is privately owned. Generally, the land belongs to government. Actually, it is that is thought exactly is wrong, because people are the owners of the land. All the natural resources belong to people. Government is only a custodian. That is the technical definition of government. Now, if government is a custodian and the government is managing my wealth and my money and my resources, I have a right to ask the government, how are you managing my money? Okay? So I think as citizens we have a right to ask the government, how are you managing my money efficiently or not? Okay? So we have to really open the accounts and see how the current budget is being spent and how efficiently it is being spent. Where is the money going? When they say money, in fact our own prime ministers in the past have said that I am sending 1 rupee from Delhi and finally only 10 rupees, 1 rupee and only 10 paisa is reaching the. So we have a food security program where we spend about $30 billion every year to distribute wheat and rice to people. Okay? I don't know if that's the most efficient way of providing food security. But we also accept, it is a well-documented research study, we also accept that 30%, more than 30% of transmission losses. The wheat is getting leaked on the way, 30%. Just imagine you're talking about $10 billion getting wasted and we accept it. So what is that we should be doing? We should be actually asking the government, do it more efficiently in a way that we don't waste money. So there's a lot of wastage, leakages happen in our governance, the way we manage our welfare programs. So I think we have to take into account all the inefficiencies and then ask the question, can we afford it? Till then we can't even afford. Like for example, there are mines in India. Now who owns the mines? Government says it owns the mines, but it's not true. So people have a right. So there is a movement in India, in Goa particularly, where they are saying that the revenue that comes from mines should be kept as intergenerational equity. It should be given to the future generations. You have to put it in a fund and keep it for the future generations. So I think these are all the ideas we can bring to the table and say how do we create this big basic income fund from where we can give money. Now the question is, if you see, I always give Nepal's example. Where should you start? Should you start with peanuts? But actually, Nepal, 1995, they started with peanuts. They gave $1 or $2 per month. Now it is $40, 4,000 rupees. So they started with 100 rupees, I think, and 100 rupees. What happened in between? How come we are able to afford 4,000 now? At that time, you could afford only 100. So those are the dynamics of the political economy. During elections, political parties started competing and saying that we will make it from 72 to 70. Vote for us. We will make it 68. Vote for us. We will make it 2,000 rupees from 1,000 rupees. Vote for us. So that is where the dynamic of the political economy takes over. So I would say my personal recommendation is that you can start anywhere. You start with $1, doesn't matter, because you are creating an infrastructure of giving money to people. During COVID time, we realized the significance of reaching with cash to people. That is when I think the whole idea of cash should go into people's pockets came. So I think that is, we cannot straight away say that I can't afford it because I am a poor country. No. How much of aid comes to Nepal? Where is it all going? Is it really creating the kind of development that is required? Is it creating income security to people in rural areas? We'll see when we do the Nepal study. there. So the kind of insecurity that exists. So why is it that insecurity is not going away despite so much of aid coming, so much of government expenditure happening? We have to raise all these questions. There is contrary evidence possible. I would like to really see. This is from the open research in the United States, Illinois.
Yes, so it was in an article published by the Heritage Foundation.
Possible. I mean, possible that, but we have to see what was the design of the program. We are talking about 5 characteristics. I think one has to fulfill all the 5 characteristics if you want sustained impact of. So whether they have followed universal, whether they followed the unconditional, what I think there are in the United States there are at least 200 pilots going on, 150 pilots going on at the same time. So they're all different kinds of models. So we have to just check. I mean, I'm sure there can be a contrary evidence, but we have to see what exactly was that model. Reduces inequality. I would more than inequality. My concern or our concern is that nobody should be deprived of basic needs. So it will reduce deprivation. If somebody is not having enough food, they will get enough food. If somebody is not able to educate their child, they will educate their child. If somebody is not able to take regular medication, they will take regular medication. Whether it is going to remove inequalities, I don't know. I don't think that is the project actually. I think the project of this is that there should be no income insecurity in people and all the consequences of income insecurity, mental illness, physical illness and all that. So you would like to add?
On the inequality point, a couple of days ago I was watching a YouTube video or something in which Mark Zuckerberg's Hawaii house is being discussed. It says it has 30 bedrooms, this much, that much, everything. And in the comments somebody is talking that a wealth tax on ultra rich billionaires, why don't we tax the ultra rich on their wealth, etc. And in one of the replies to the comments it says, now if they are taxed, instead of 30 he will only have 20 bedrooms in his Hawaii house or something. Now the point is, I believe that in the foundational principles of universal basic income there is social justice and there is redistribution, because how are you getting the money to fund it? We definitely have to redo our public finance systems. Now in that process we will have to see what kind of tax reliefs we give to the industrialists. In fact, if you give a certain big tax relief to the corporate world and you give this money to the people, we might think that the industrialist or the corporate is creating so much employment and creating stimulus into the economy, but all our countries really are fully informal economies. Largely 70% of the workforce at least is in informal setup. Those people will put that stimulus into the economy. Therefore, in ideas such as wealth tax, estate tax, and there are different ideas of how we can fund this. In that process, there is idea of redistribution. But more than anything, there is vulgar inequality in our world right now. From the time data is available forever, we are at a point when inequality is at its highest. Nobel laureate from India, Abhijit Banerjee, recently says that if you take all the data available, we are in obscene inequality right now, and if we leave it like this, we will go towards a point where all the dystopia is only going to be true, and in that context, universal basic income gives a space for people to not fall back upon, but stand and look forward.
So as Kapil Suresh mentioned, we don't have enough budget, or like the efficiency is not there to reach the people we want. If we're doing this on top of, if you're adding UPI on top of existing programs, how exactly would we be able to finance? Because as you just said, most of our economy, not most, about 40% of our economy is informal sector, right? So we're only receiving money from the formal sector, about 60% of the economy. So won't it just add stress to the say middle class worker who is like paying taxes and stuff, right? Because the ultra rich are ultra rich, they will be able to afford. But the middle class, lower middle class especially, who are just getting by, living a decent life, let's say, won't it just add stress to them? And another is like I was reading my cousin's book a couple of days back, Development is Freedom. And in that book, he explains poverty as not only lack of money, but the lack of opportunity to utilize or like the ability to utilize that money, right? So, for example, if person A and person B have the same amount of money, but if person B is suffering from, say, I don't know, an illness or something, right? Person B has cancer, for example. So, even though they have the same amount of money, they can't be considered equally poor because of their difference in the ability to utilize the money, right? So how does UPI tackle that ability to utilize the money? Because we're just providing them money right now. And on the surface, it may seem that we're giving them equal money, so it's equal for everyone. But the concept of equity comes again, right? So how do we tackle that?
Or part of the economic infrastructure of the society, we want a society where people don't have to start from zero. Now, how we reorganize our public finances and how we manage that is a matter of detail. But in principle, it is not seeking to reduce inequality. Inequality may be reduced, but that is not why you are setting out to do it. You are actually creating a new society which makes people more secure. Now, the ability to utilize is also, I think, once you, one of the things that a basic income has proven in the evidence shows us is that the sheer security of having something assured, basic, very basic, gives you a certain sense of security mentally, psychologically. Imagine if some of the students here, the day you got your 5-year or 3-year fellowship, I mean, it has completely changed your life. The way you think, the way you operate, the sense of security actually makes you a different person altogether. In a society also, you become a better person. So I think those things you start seeking, you start feeling equal to everybody, and you start seeking for opportunities. So I think a lot of things happen as part of that evolution, rather than we can't say straight away that this is definitely going to happen. We have to see the evidence, what it has done psychologically to people. I think that would, the public finance question you can answer.
We're here. These are some of the issues. At the time, we just went through the COVID crisis, so we knew how the situation was. Now again, as some of you has already mentioned, we are at the highest time where the inequality prevails in our society. So in this context, how do we move forward? So should we depend on the policies we already have? Are they enough? If so, then why the problem we are facing is not going away, right? We had lots of targeted programs, we have done lots of interventions, we have done lots more work, all as a civil society, as a government, as a people, we are trying to help everybody. We want in a principle some sense of security to all, and we are doing something or other to do that. But why are we not reaching to that positions then? Then should we ever reach that positions? Then the question, I want to start from that point. The way we are doing our development, the way we are running our finances, government especially public finances, are they delivering the right things we want as a people? If so or not, and that's some of the questions I think we have, and hopefully this is getting some interest of you all. So what do we do? So do we go for tea break and we'll start? So because the next session will be this continuous one, we'll be keeping talking on these ideas. So and at the time, so since we have not done our introductions, so I think we can have that introduction in tea time as well. So let's introduce ourselves, have a tea for 10 minutes, then we'll continue the discussion.
Yeah.
So
it is applicable in universal manner, but the design of the program itself is not universal in nature. So we are basically giving money to certain individuals, and we are examining if their life is improved. Obviously, that conclusion will be their life will be improved. But if we are trying to give, if the program is universal in nature, everyone would be getting the same amount of money. So that means that the things that wouldn't there be, I think I will want you to talk more about the inflation, how it would impact. It would be how the economy, inflation. How do you account the inflation that is going to occur when the program is universal in nature? First of all, that then just you can start with that. Then I have my follow-up questions.
I'm Dirmal Khatri. I have some interesting questions regarding. Also, I was a little bit reading about universal basic incomes, and which is also big success in 60s and 70s in US and Canada also. But over the period of like last 30, 40 years, it's not falling into the main radar, you know. And there are a lot of alternatives happening. Cash transfer is also happening. But the questions I think we need to ask is. Who will be or who are these people who will be these people that will bring objections in the programs of universal basic incomes. You can call it cash transfers or cash citizens dividend also. So are there people and it's becoming success in especially in developed countries today, like in the UK also, and also cash transfer happening from Mexico to India, South Africa to also Brazil, and that has also doubled a lot of income, especially for the women communities. When you give money to them, they have doubled their incomes, and there were a lot of questioning coming also. But who are the people will be objecting? In the universal basic income. What do you think? Who will be these people? Are these people economists or politicians? And the people or the political situations in our country are ready to accept these programs even without thinking, even without trusting the peoples. There are a lot of what we call the you know it's like people are not trusting the process. How do you know that? Also have heard a lot of criticisms. When you give money to the people, you are making people lazy, but there are other ways to see around. So if you have you know income for the food, for the shelter, for the educations, you tend to work a little bit more because you have dreams, you have ambitions. And also the questions, if we ask here, for example, and also we have the questions coming about the source. Why do we have these questions coming? Why we are thinking, where is the source of this fund? We have billions of dollars spending in military, in weapons, and a lot of poverty alleviations, flagship programs, and giving money is actually cheaper than not giving. So I think the questions we need to ask is, who are these people? Will be the objections in our what do you call it, programs of universal basic income. So are the government ready, like in our developing countries, like even in India or in Nepal? That's all.
Giving cash injection to the society. For example, the COVID case was referenced twice or thrice, right? So I don't really have data of Nepal because we've not published data. But in US, what I found, like, what we've seen is like because of the cash injections, there was a rise in inflation, because of which they had to increase the interest rate, because of which now the labor market is suffering. So now there's a problem where like either the labor market is where the unemployment is increasing or the inflation is increasing, and there's like a lose-lose situation, right? So that is also another pitfall of this. How do we tackle that? And I mean, for a country like ours, we don't really have that much of a military spending, right? Like, let's not take USA for now. Like for Nepal, as Kapil Sir mentioned in a study, there's like government is saying we don't even have money to give for old age allowances in like the near future. So on top of that, if we're giving extra money to people, how are we going to get that money? Again, I don't know. I'm just stuck in this question because the basic premise of universal basic income is giving money to people, which I'm absolutely in favor of. I'm just confused as to how and where the money is coming from. And if we're printing more money for it, then inflation again, the same problem as I mentioned before. That's basically.
Not my question, but what I hear from the participants is that it's not very convincing to say that you give money and in return you get such impacts that you highlighted in the presentation. So I would really like to appreciate the work that you have done, because for me, to have that such impact, the behavioral change aspect that you presented is really very impressive. And we're just questioning the same thing, that is it possible? But your results showed that it's possible. I'm not talking about the amount, like whether it's big or small, but money is money, whether it's 1,000 or 1 rupees. Money is always, your third eye is always lit up when you have money factor attached to it. And so I'd like to appreciate the work that you have done and the behavioral aspect that has come out through your research, because even for me, I never thought that a waste picker would make such behavioral change in such a short duration of time. So I think what we are saying, is it possible or not possible? I think positively it's giving us a hint that it's possible. But at the same time, I'm also thinking that if we want to do something like that in Nepal, which would be the ideal community to work with? Because I think there's no similarities in the level of poverty that Indian people have and Nepali people have. So I don't know which would be a very ideal community to do such pilot work here. And I appreciate the work you do.
All the questions. I'll just respond based on my experience. This is not universal. That's true. In the sense, a basic income should, at the end of the day, be implemented by the government only. Government is responsible for the welfare of people. So, all that an NGO can do is to demonstrate its effectiveness. Because we say there are cash transfers everywhere. But this, how is basic income different from a cash transfer? Everything is a cash transfer. Scholarship is a cash transfer. You take a loan from a bank, it's cash is transferred to you. It's just a cash transfer is just transfer of cash from me to you or you to me. But a basic income has these 5 characteristics, and it has also right space. That it's about human dignity also. That an individual has a right to exist by the very fact that that person exists. So you recognize the fact that as a human being, you should not be in poverty. Is a kind of a background. So that is why it becomes basic income only with these five characteristics. That's most important. So all that an NGO can do is to demonstrate. And why is the pilot important? I mean, the maximum we try to do in a village, if you take one village is definitely an administrative entity. There is a boundary to that village. Okay? So within that village, if you give everybody, including the rich, we gave. In Madhya Pradesh, pilot we gave to the rich, to the poor. Initially, the rich said that, no, we don't want to take. You're taking our signatures and maybe you will cheat and run away. Why should you give us money at all? So, but there is a whole incredulousness about this thing. But later on, they also saw that this is a trustworthy thing. Particularly women in those households said that we also want bank accounts for us. We have a lot of wealth, land, but I don't have a bank account of my own. I never exposed myself to trainings that you are giving these women. I want to go make use of those financial literacy trainings, livelihoods trainings, and all that. So I said, go and convince your husbands. So they went back and convinced their husbands, and then everybody started getting. So maximum, that is all we can do. A policy in my state, Telangana, there is a policy called Raitu Bandhu, which is basic income for farmers. We have 60 million farmers. All the 60 million farmers get money twice, unconditionally, twice a year. 2 sowing seasons, they get the money. And that is completely unconditional. In the sense, you don't even have to cultivate. This is automatically given to you. So that is one way it has become universal within a particular domain. Now, the latest, what John has presented, is they are wanting to give to women from age 18 to 60. Because after 60, you get a pension. So 18 to 60, all women are being given a basic income of 2,500 or 3,500 rupees. That has become a trend, so every state started replicating that. Now the third is they are trying to do for youth, unemployed youth. So things like that. So all that we can do is only, that's the maximum we can do. Demonstrate. Pilot can only demonstrate. How would you tackle inflation? I'll come to that later. Who actually objects to basic income? Who are these people? Is your question, right? Actually, to give anything unconditionally, there is a knee-jerk reaction from everybody. Why should you get any money free? Is a question people ask. And why should see, if you understand society as having two kinds of people, the masters and the slaves, just for the sake of argument, okay? Now, the master would like to have control over the slave. Slave should deliver labor to the master. Okay, so you can imagine that suppose the laborer says, the slave says, I will not come to work. Who is the most affected party? It is the master. So master would not like to give freedom to the slave, because if he has freedom, then he will not obey the way the master wants the slave to obey. Okay, so who is objecting? People with the mentality of master, that society will dissipate, the society will go bad, is the kind of an anxiety people have, that if you give free money, it is seen as free money. But at the same, as I was saying in the morning, the same logic doesn't apply to all the rich children of rich people. They're all getting free money. Are they not getting free money? I got free education from my parents. They didn't ask me to work. But then why do we say that this fellow should not be given free? So that is the contradiction in our society. So what we are saying is that money is a resource, and everybody should have that resource at a very minimum level, basic level, so that one is not. Now, why is it that we need it badly now? I think John was saying that the economists are saying that the inequality is at its peak today. What is the reason? What is happening in the global economy in general? Since the 1990s, the new business models are moving in the direction now very rapidly towards fragmented production. Okay, wherever the cheap labor is there, you go. Don't have factories, don't give stable jobs, don't give full-time jobs. The post-war golden era was, you got a job in a factory and you retired in that factory and you got a pension. And you went and bought a piece of land and you lived a life, your retired life. But today, in India, 95% of the 500 million workforce is in the so-called informal sector. In fact, that is the main sector. So laborers, now only most important employer today is the government. And then the factories, the big factories, visible big factories, they employ and they have some kind of security, job security. So if you broadly divide good jobs versus bad jobs, what is a bad job? Bad job is the one where you have no security at all, where you have no control over how much you are paid. Like today, we are talking about a gig economy. How many of the young people here, even universities are not giving full-time jobs. They are also using contract laborers, contract lecturers. So in the future is going to be a situation where income insecurity is going to be very high. That is the very business models that we are talking about. So if that is going to be the situation, what kind of a society are we visualizing in the future is the question we basically have to ask. As a sociologist, that is the question I ask. So when there is more insecurity, definitely there will be more mental illness, there will be more crime, there will be more abusive relationships, so on and so forth. So I think looking into that kind of very disturbing future, I think we have to make some amends at this juncture. When we look at the Nepal situation, we'll see where is the vulnerable population. Okay, that is so. Where is it coming from? In India, the left parties are objecting to basic income, saying, "Oh, the government is going to give money and wash off its hands and say that I have no more rights. Sorry, we have given you money, so no more rights." So that they are worried about that. The welfare role of the government will try to escape. That is one. What do neoliberals say? Some neoliberals say that you should not give anybody free. Nothing should be given free. Our own great Infosys founder, he made a big statement that governments are giving this kind of freebies. You should never give any freebies. So, but the governments are now defending universal basic income. So they are getting a backlash from all ends. Basically, inflation can happen for a variety of reasons, right? Now, we are assuming that pumping more money into the system, you're going to cause inflation. But I would say when the society, the economy is running on deficit, when you inject money, that is why you borrow. When you inject money, it doesn't cause inflation. Even if it causes inflation, you are saying that the employers will start giving less wages. There is also an argument because you already have your basic income. Why should I give you full wage? Is a kind of question. But I think, like the way government is supposed to manage macroeconomic situation, I think government should find ways of regulating that also. For example, you should ensure that the basic necessities like food and housing should be regulated by the government, and it should be given relatively cheaper rather than allowing the market to take over. I think it's a question of management by the government. I would only put that. Maybe Ram has any other answer.
Not definitely. So, just for now, so I'm going to play a short, message from Professor Guy Standing.
One or two more are there.
Sorry.
I thought you would just add to this.
So I'll go and then,
How do we fund this? I think that is a bigger question. It's not can't be simply answered. How do you fund this? Now, I think I won't attempt an answer now for this because maybe when we come to Nepal, we can actually go into that question now. In Nepal, where to do a pilot? I would say we have made a proposal also that you can take some rural villages, a couple of villages, maybe four villages or 5 villages, and then give everybody a basic income and for 2 years or something, and then see what will be the impact. What will you lose? You won't lose anything. Yeah, but if at all, you will actually see if it's going to be very different from other villages. If the local economy is going to become very more dynamic, then there you have the answer also. So you study individuals, you study households, you study the community and the economy. Also, what actually it has done. Because money is such a crucial, like you said, the third eye. Money is such an important resource that people simply don't have it enough. So I would stop there. Let's listen to Professor Guy Standing. Professor Guy Standing is one of the founders of Basic Income Earth Network and a very prominent economist based in now at the moment. He teaches in SOAS in the University of London. He had done a lot. He was an ILO person for 15 to 20 years. And then he taught in Bath University. And he worked in India for a long time, particularly with SEWA, Self-Employed Women's Association. And he was the one.
Before playing this video, so I had a privilege of working with Guy Standing, and so the one way or other, so the idea of basic income, I have somehow got interested is because of him. So so let's listen message from him. So I don't know how audible it will be, but let me try.
Volume increase.
It's a pleasure to be talking to you from a very rainy Switzerland. I've recently been working in the West Bank on an emergency basic income there, and I think it's very relevant because Nepal has been through a very traumatic time in recent years, and there is real need in Nepal, as in other countries that have had similar difficulties, for a sense of unity, a sense of social solidarity, and a sense of revival. And there is one thing that is really essential in those circumstances, and that is the creation of a sense of basic security, basic economic security, basic social security, basic security for everybody. And I think in that context, the idea of an emergency basic income is a potentially unifying policy. It's a policy that gives everybody an equal basic economic right, a right to have rights, the essence of citizenship. Now, I think that the appeal of a basic income now as a form of social protection in a world that is identified as existing with chronic uncertainty for millions and millions of people everywhere. It's essential to have this for everybody and not go down the road, further down the road, of targeting through means testing and behavior testing and selecting one group rather than another as more or less deserving. It's better to have a modest amount for everybody and let the people themselves decide how they share with those with more needs than others, than to try to identify through means testing, that is poverty line and things like that. It's a false economy. As we found in India, if you try to target on those identified by their poverty status, you inevitably run into huge problems of exclusion. People who deserve, by the criteria used to receive something, they don't get it. Whereas many who do get it are more clever at operating through the system. It's a false road to economy. There is one other thing that I would like to really emphasize. We have found that a basic income provided to everybody, every man, every woman, and every child paid a smaller amount, is an emancipatory tool, instrument. The emancipatory value is greater than the money value. It induces risk-taking entrepreneurial activities of a small-scale kind. It induces a sense of cooperative values, shared values, what I call commoning in my books. Commoning means that it induces a sense of altruism, a sense of feeling that the others in your community are part of your community. And the basic income has achieved that, where we've tested it in India, in Africa, in Canada, in Brazil, even in my own country of Britain. We have seen it recently where everybody in Wales has been receiving a basic income. It's a policy that is very well suited to its time, to today. As I speak to you, there are something like 200 experiments in numerous countries taking place. And everywhere we've seen similar results. A sense of improved mental health above all else. But I want to conclude by making a strong point that it has a multiplier effect. It has a multiplier effect in inducing more investment, more economic activities, so that the economic value is much greater than the monetary value put into it. And above all, it is an emancipatory policy for women. It is much more appreciated by women. It helps liberate them from constraints. And in that regard, it is a policy that would be wonderful in Nepal. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. I mean, from him is one word, if you have remember, that's emancipatory. So, I mean, I somehow believe that, I mean, that's my personal view, okay? So, it's not necessary that you should all believe in that. So, my personal view, as, I mean, Guy Standing articulates, I mean, universal basic income or some sort of income security is more of a emancipatory value rather than a money. It's not about money, but it's valuing who you are for being in your society. It's treating you that you all are equal. The government is, it's saying that government is treating you all equal. So in that sense, I mean, some emancipatory value it adds on to who we are as a human. So I think that's something I really, I mean, thinking in that direction. So I'm also doing some reading, some more thinking in these directions. Again, I mean, being economist by training, I again sometimes become reluctant, as I mean, Aditya and others have just pointed out the fact that I mean, giving money might be of waste, and there has been loss. I mean, people of time and again criticize this type of ideas. So this is something I mean we need to think of. As I'm standing again, I'm again bringing him again here, as he said that the issues of, I mean, the challenges we are facing is even going to be more. Like again, Sarath Bhai has just mentioned that the way economy is functioning, the way we are moving ahead. So in that case, we need to have something different. We need to all start thinking in a different way so that we all have some I mean, values. I mean, that's all I want to say for now. I mean, from that, so again, let's go to you all. I mean, I'm sure that you have lots of questions and lots of thinking in that process, because we all are somehow or other way familiar to this issue in one or other ways, maybe from religion, maybe from your readings and all. Right, so I mean, I'll stop here and I'll just move to you. So if you have any questions, any comments, so we are very, very happy to listen that. And reflect on that. So I think basically these reflections will give the way forward. And basically the topic, I mean, today's discussion, which we have said here is is the basic income or something good for Nepal? And since we are the stakeholder from Nepal, from different sectors, some of us are from academia, some of us are from trade unions, some are from private sector, some of us are from civil society network. I think this somehow reflects us as a, I mean, community. So I mean, your views, your reflections will be very helpful for us. So let's continue the discussions. So anybody, any reflections, any comments? Yes.
To be frankly speaking, I am not an economist, so I may have misunderstood some stuffs that is being. To be frankly, I am not an economist, and I may have misunderstood some terms. In the word income itself implicates that that is something earned after working, you know. And as Mr. Son in his presentation, prior to his presentation, he said that these kind of allowances are often stigmatized, and it is not any research stuff that is I'm basing my argument. It's just only an anecdotal experience I have seen. During COVID time, people were quite reluctant to accept those allowances. No, if it is often associated with the social status, that is, he is not working, he is accepting those freebies, quote unquote. So, how would we can convince people to accept those money? I'm repeating that I'm speaking on the basis of my anecdotal experience. Or can we, or alternatively, can we provide some work and then remunerate them with money? So that's my question.
Like I try, or you can say I find it. Okay. But the sustainability of that vision is one of the vision. Have to be explained out how we can sustain it for longer period, so that the people there living or we will have a better life than before. That matters, that the people, though they are poor or richer, but we are going to induce that money is something you can be better in life. You have to earn money. Money matters. That's the point. I think. So the sustainability for that particular society is the question mark.
The sustainability of funding about whether income can be from non-work also. Um, a lot of income is earned on wealth. For example, I invest and then I keep getting wealth. So a lot of income is earned like that actually. So
But more income is earned.
well, yeah, than working. Now, if we want to create employment and then give remuneration to people, can the government do it? Now, how many jobs can the government accommodate? Therefore, the government will say now let's privatize and the private sector can create more employment. Is that happening? Are we entering an industrial or a service based economy that is creating good employment that comes with social protection, pays well, everything? Now, that's a question. I'm not answering it. And from here, let's move on to future, where there is a chance that AI might take over a lot of work and 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 take away more employment from the uh, from the economy. Now, in this context, if I'm creating employment and then letting people earn their income out of work, then the idea of UBI wouldn't arise, right? Uh, so since that's failing, this comes as an alternative. Second thing is, totally agree with you on how people would feel stigmatized to receive the benefits during the COVID. Last night I was reading that the names of the beneficiaries would be placed on the internet or of whoever is receiving this COVID, right? So people wouldn't want uh, to others to know that they are receiving. For example, in India, if the public distribution system through which they give dry rations, right? In a state, in my state of Andhra Pradesh, a vehicle was created. Instead of people going to the shop and getting it, a vehicle is arranged. That vehicle will come to your house and give the dry rations to you. Now people are starting to feel embarrassed that this ration vehicle will come to my house and give. Everybody will start to know that I am a recipient of this. Right. So this sort of psychological stigma is associated, and that is why the idea of universality, that if everybody receives and I also receive, then the idea of stigma goes right now. So that's where universality becomes important. I would leave sustainability and better life questions for other speakers.
Yeah, I mean, uh, sustainability question comes first of all whether you accept the principle.
Yes.
I think that is the first point. So you're accepting. If we accept that this is good for the society, then we can start reorganizing the society, reallocating the resources we have. For example, one very simple source I can very clearly see in India. About maybe 10 years ago, government has passed a law that all 4% or 3%, 4% of all corporate profits has to be spent on CSR, corporate social responsibility. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Okay. Now there is a very interesting campaign going on in state of Oregon. Oregon, I think. Is it Oregon? Yeah, state of Oregon. It's called Oregon rebate. There, the minimum taxation is 1% corporate tax. Minimum. It can't go below 1%. Okay. So at least a corporation, for whatever creative accounting they do, they have to pay at least 1% tax. Okay. Now this proposal of this campaign, or it's called Oregon rebate, proposal is to make it 3%. And that's going to deliver for the entire state a lot of money. Now that money is going to be managed by a trust to give every resident of that state a basic income. That's the campaign going on. They have won the referendum also. So I think most probably it will be implemented. So similarly, so if I mean that is definitely one source that I can think of. for sustainability, because as long as corporations are there, private sector is there, you will have that fund. Okay. So similarly, other natural resources, how those natural resources, how mines, the whole scam about mines in India, how the contracts are given for the mines, and how government looks at that revenue as what. If you really go into those accounting system, there's a very interesting court case in India about this whole about accounting about the revenue that comes from the mines. So I think there are many models that are getting created about how to fund a basic income and how to sustain it over a period of time. So I would stop there. As you said, that income has to be earned. I think John has responded to that. And I don't know if you have heard that Warren Buffett is that great stockbroker. He said that if you are not going to earn while sleeping, you will be working all your life till you die. So you're supposed to earn while you're sleeping, invest in stock market. So I think not always money is earned. Oh, it's only the slaves that earn money. Rich don't work for it actually.
UBI is not, the government doesn't give UBI, it actually redistributes the resources it has. So under that presumption that is your contention that there are enough resources lying around, and what data points are like, do you reference to what data points do you have to so that data points you have that actually gives an makes it possible for you to advocate for UBI, because it has to be actually possible for you to advocate that. Otherwise, because UBI is basically saying that everyone needs to be rich. Obviously, everyone needs to be rich, but how can you go about it? The process has to be formulated nicely. Yeah. And earlier on, you said that the inflation can be avoided or it can be manageable through government regulation and such, and you not advocated, you just said that government has to have some control over the markets, but that can be disastrous, because giving government central authority to manage daily resources is not a good idea. Like income, like central command, I don't think it actually makes people wealthy. Like it just manages, it just manages, I think. So that is the second question. I think if you answer this, I'll have follow-up questions again.
Yeah, but it's economic situation, isn't it? That is the role of the government, isn't it?
But are they efficient enough to do that? That's the question. But can they have information at hand? Like that, I don't think.
The central banks are supposed to, in every country, the central banks are supposed to manage their monetary policy, and along with that, they should also make sure. In India, for example, money supply is being controlled, right, by the central bank. Yes. So therefore, the inflation points also are recorded, and then you are supposed to maintain that. Now, universal basic income, you're not saying print more money and give. We look into the pool, what we're doing, what is our current categories of spending, where we can cut down. There is a lot of inefficiency, for example, like Sharat said, on how much, for example, in the case of India, there is PDS, there is a lot of in-kind assistance. Now, let's say a department allocates these many hundreds of crores of money on certain vulnerable section. Now, in the process, you're paying salaries to all the employees of that department, you're paying the contracts, you're paying that, this, everything. And finally, the kind of service that that particular vulnerable society, population should receive, is receiving only a small amount. Now, let's say all that budgeted amount directly is sent to that community. They receive a higher amount, and they receive direct all of it, right? The point is, one, to answer the question directly about inflation, the governments it's their responsibility to manage inflation. So we're not freshly creating money and giving it. We are redoing our public finance system, and it might we might not have evidence, economic data points to suggest, okay, here is the money, let's do it from tomorrow or next month, next year. This is an idea. And if we understand that everybody needs money, everybody needs a certain basic services, and then from there, if we keep thinking forward for the next decade, next years on, then we can identify what sources are there, etc., etc.
That confidently about India, if you look at the employment scenario for the future, it's very bleak. Now, whether we can afford, this affordability question keeps coming again and again in different forms. Can we afford it? Can we sustain it? Is it not too much? Will it not cause inflation? Suppose I frame it like this. I say, if you are ill, if you're not well, and say that I can't afford medicine, what will you say? You will borrow and take a pill and get all right, first of all, isn't it? If you are ill, you can't work. So you take the medicine and then go and work. Similarly, if we are saying the future, next 20 years, what is the kind of employment people are going to get is a big question. There is going to be more insecurity in the society. I think we have to take that into account and then make the necessary amends in order for people to live even a minimum life. Forget about maximum life, but even a minimum life. I think that is what government should be worried about. That is what civil society, academics, and all of us should be worried about. That the future seems to be very bleak. Artificial intelligence, for example. I mean, all of us have ChatGPT now. ChatGPT is going to replace a lot of people. You don't need a research assistant now. It is also designing brochures. It is also doing everything. Anyway, so I think how are we getting prepared for that? Should that lightning come and strike you and then we will act, or we foresee the storm coming and try to prepare for it?
With a very high income insecurity of people. I think the very large majority of the people are really living very income insecure for their full life. And that's giving a lot of suffering to people. I think all of us, we know what it means when you are not getting the income you need for that. It makes your life very difficult. But most of the people in your country are really struggling a lot in their life how to get this income. So if you put yourself the question, would it be good that Nepal in a near future has people without income insecurity? I think you could say, okay, this could be probably a lot better society for us. So this could make us, our society, a lot better, and it will impact on everything in our society. But the question you say, okay, but how we pay for this basic income? And how we will reach the point? Well, the issue of inflation, this is true. Imagine you have now the money and you give everybody that money. You will have a huge inflation, there will not be enough goods to pay and so on. So basic income cannot start just giving tomorrow all this money to people. It will go progressing slowly, a small amount that will be growing progressively while your society is rearranging according to this new situation. That this will be a process. So it won't be fast. But you were saying, who will oppose this idea? Who are the people who are going to lose more in this process? The ruling elites. In every country in this world, the people who are ruling the country from all aspects, politically, economically, this is a small part of the population. Of course, they are the ones that would say, we are going to face a very huge social change, and they will be really afraid. But I think there is a very strong link between basic income and governance, because basic income can help you to improve your governance. But because people, when they will feel more secure, they will also need a society more democratic and better governed, I think. But of course, this is why you need people to support this basic income. It's not an issue that the government will put in place because it will be opposition. But if this is what people want, there will be no other way. So I think this is linked with governance is very strong. And how to pay for it and how you start? Well, I think it will not be fair that a country that Nepal pays fully for putting in place a basic income that in our world, all other countries will need to learn about. And this could be a huge amount of money that later you put the money in a basic income and now you cannot pay for your education, your health, and many other things. So government needs the government budget to keep doing many things while your society is changing. So who is going to pay? I think in the global south should be something at the global level, putting this money. So imagine you are in Nepal progressively introducing a basic income. Small amount at the very beginning, and year after year, you are increasing this amount. You are less than 30 million people. Is this a huge amount of money for all of us globally? No. We will spend a lot more in many more things that do not give us nothing, or on the contrary, which are. So this is not. But so that's why there is need also this type of global campaigns to say, okay, let's go for a global fund to support basic income in some countries that can start, and we will all of us learn how this is changing a society and how good is this.
In sort of short project, pilot project, 20 months, 18 months projects to for convincing government for in allocating that money. Based on your experience, please explain that question. Yes.
It was done between 2011-13,
Yeah.
and since then we have been talking to political parties,
Yeah.
showing them the results. Now the Congress party, which is the main opposition party, they have put basic income on in their manifesto. So as of, I mean, they are not in power, but they are in power in many states. In those states, they are implementing both this for farmers and for women, what John has presented. So we are able to influence by showing evidence, we are able to influence in many countries the political parties, because finally it's the government that has to implement. The political parties that have to really get convinced and implement it. Yeah, sure. So that is where evidence is useful. I mean, pilot does much more than evidence. It generates a lot of conversation. Some people will oppose it, some people will like it, some people will argue against it. So it generates a lot of conversation. That is the most important.
2023, I think. So I just want to show you that some of the data we had from that. So it's what basically we analyzed Nepal's budget on assumptions. So that is around 43%. Now next is the pension and gratuity for retired for formal sector employees, basically government employees. So that's around 35%. And total, I mean, budget, 11% of the total subsidy is going for agricultural input subsidy. Similarly, healthcare 6%, employment guarantee program 3.3%, and education and midday support 1.5%. So altogether, it makes 100%. So it was around 500 to $65 million. So that was our total social protection budget in 2019-20. So as you see that lots of money is going in different sections, and as you see here, so majority of the money is going to old age pension and for pensions for the government servants. So I mean that's one, okay. And then let me put to next slide. So how much those people make? I mean mixed total amount in numbers. Let us see that. If we see at that time it was 70 plus for the people to get social security allowance. So it made around 1 million people at that time. Around 1 million people got that. That makes the 3.5% of the total populations at that time. Similarly, there was other scheme, single woman and divorced women above 40. So if you take all the age group, so it will be around 94,000. So 94,000. Yeah. So if you make everything, then it will become around 1-2% of the people, they are getting some way or the other support from the government based on our social security allowance. So in a way, country like ours, it might seems good, okay, at least 1 out of 10 people are getting some support from the government. That's in a way, and if we compare our South Asian average, that might be look better, okay. So that's the point. And now let me go again. If we see how much that is in terms of our total coverage. In pensions and retiree, it's around 0.9% of the people. And similarly, in Prime Minister's Employment Guarantee Scheme, so around 1 lakh people got job, and it was supposed to give the job guarantee of 100 days, so but some way our act also has said that we'll be giving 100 days of job, but they are getting 16 on average, so it's on implementation phase, maybe it will go increase. So these are some of the numbers I am presenting. So now, based on the number which I presented earlier, and if you compare here, so you'll see something very important. So in case of Nepal, it was again it was a data of 2019-20. If you see that the formal wage employment makes only 2% of the total labor force. Public, again, and out of that, this public jobs makes around 0.2% of the total employment. Again, including all private and others formal employment, it makes around 1 or 2%. So if you see that all together of these workforce in Nepal, 60% are unpaid workers. Basically, they are working in household. They are not paid any money at all. And similarly, if we see self-employed and others and informal wage, so it makes 20%. So out of all the labor force in our economy, what we see is around 3-4% of the people who are getting secure income. So rest of all, they are in a way insecure. Their income security is in state. They are not getting this security, income security or other security, they are not getting. So, when there is some sort of fear, and that makes more than 70% of the total population. So as you have said, that only 10% are getting some support. So based on this, again, if we see this breakdown, around of 8.8 million people who are working in farm or unpaid workers, 90 unpaid workers, 92% are on farm. Similarly, non-farm unpaid workers are 8%, so that makes a total of 100%. Similarly, if we see in other sectors, gender breakup, what we see is that 68% of the total unpaid labor in Nepal are women. So this figure we can see. Similarly, if we see about wage employment, of total 2.73 million wage employment, around 72% is male and only 28% about female employment. So this is something of figure we have for Nepal. So what we are discussing, or we are trying to say here, is that the income insecure population is very high in our economy. They are in a way insecure. So in the face of insecurity, how can one feel liberated? What can be done to those people? I don't know the definite answer, but that something should be done for sure. And what can that be? One response for the last 30 or 40 years, the discussion or the conversation is going on. It's universal basic income could be one of the ways. Again, I know the questions which are coming from the floor are very relevant, and that type of question comes time and again. It will come again and again in the future as well, because it is something to think of, and we are not used to think of the something holistic like this approach. In that sense, it is a very, radical. It's a very radical idea. When something is seen as a radical idea, then, it takes people to digest, right? It takes people to acknowledge that. Again, that's true. And again, as the guy standing just pointed, there are more than 200 pilot projects going around the world. And all those projects are showing the positive impact. Means there is something in these things which we are discussing. So, in that sense, so I think what I believe personally is we need to think, given the complexity we are facing in this world, some of the discussion already came here also. In that sense, in the face of this type of vulnerability, in this type of insecurity, then we need to see something, we need to start thinking, we need to start contemplating something on that.
So that could be universal basic income, and here we have a very advocate for that. I mean, Dr. Sarath Dhavala. So we have been listening to him. So again, I mean, so here my point here is, these are some of the issues, and based on that, so we need to reflect, I think, some of these questions to think through. This should be a food for thought for us. So let's reflect on some of the questions here, and I think I'll stop here, and I'll hand over to you.
Who is defining who is vulnerable? When you have 60% of the unpaid workers, mostly women in rural areas, why are they left out of the reckoning of the government? Old age people should be given, definitely should be given. But why is there no ways of dealing with the unpaid, so many of unpaid workers? So who decides who is vulnerable? So what government has decided is, one is old age, because they are out of the labor market, they should be given a secure income. Okay, that is a very good decision. Now, Dalits, they are socially vulnerable, they should be given, yes. Women, single women, they are vulnerable, yes. Children should be given, child benefit scheme is also there, yes. Or some indigenous communities, they have decided that is as a criteria that they should be given. And some geographically remote places which are far away, I think they should be given. So government is, what the appeal is that see where the vulnerability is, particularly the income vulnerability, income insecurity, which Xavier was talking about. So how are you going to address this? I think probably that large chunk of unpaid workers are probably depending on remittances from abroad. I think the migrant people who have migrated, so they live upon those remittances. Now, so why the social protection coverage is only 10% of the population when you have such a large? So should we not think what to do about the other vulnerable population, particularly women? And even Professor Guy Standing also mentioned that it is women who benefit more from a basic income because of a variety of reasons. Because we think that, if you do something, you should be paid. But women are all the time doing many things to the society, but they're all completely unpaid. I think we should take that into account. That why is it that we are exploiting women in our society and not compensating them at all? Why do we take it for granted that they have to do all the care work? And why should they do it free? That is a question we should ask. Why is the vast income insecure population left out from the government assessment of vulnerable population? This is a question. We have no answers to this, but this is a question we have to raise. What about the large number of unpaid workers? That's what we were talking about. Now, who are they and how do we explain this category? Should we not define vulnerability based on 21st century realities? Because it's not just the above 60 years old people, it's not just the senior citizens, but I think there is large insecurity in the society in terms of jobs. Okay, that in future it's going to be even more. If we do a pilot study in any of the villages, we can see who will benefit most. If you do it, at least one village also, if you do, you can see the impact, what impact it will have, who will benefit most. That will give us a lot of insight. In Namibia, I've just given an example of Namibia pilot. They excluded the population who are getting. So even here also, you can perhaps exclude the senior citizens because they're already getting a basic income from the government. Now, we are asking the question that is this a matter of concern? If yes, how then would a basic income correct this anomaly? Global analysis of jobs and employment shows that most of us are vulnerable in what is developing progressively as a gig economy. A group can be formed to work on how much it would cost to give a minimum basic income of 1,000 rupees Nepali to adult and half of it to children. So maybe a small technical group can sit and work out that how much it's, like the way we have done for Bangladesh. Yeah, these are the questions that I've just open for discussion. So we just presented what we understood in our analysis about the Nepali situation.
So I would be thousand rupees more richer, and I would be able to get resources that I need. Okay, that would be okay. But if we were to give 1,000 rupees to everyone, I don't think it would make everyone thousand rupees more richer, but it would, just the value of the paper money would be higher. So isn't but we're trying to solve the problem of resources. So if I get 1,000 rupees, then I should be able to buy things that I want. That is that I would be able to afford things. But if we give everyone 1,000 rupees, just the prices of the commodities will increase. So how is it? It will be beneficial for everyone because we are trying to benefit everyone. So that is why I'm not convinced that giving everyone money would be. It will do the things that it is intending to do. And then again, then I still uncomfortable with your idea that richer people get the money and they just get richer. I mean, they have money and they. I don't think investing in stock market doesn't necessarily mean that they are not working. Their money is doing the work for them. That doesn't mean they are not creating a value because if they were not to create value, then that would be the problem. But they are actually creating value, so the economy benefits because the value that their money creates for them. See, that's why I'm uncomfortable with your idea of that rich people are putting something in the economy.
Like for example, in India, we have cooking gas subsidy from the government. That is universal. Mukesh Ambani also gets it, and the last man also gets it. It's universally, everybody gets it. Now, then our Prime Minister came and announced that those of you who don't need subsidy from the government, please give up. So about 10 million or 20 million people give up. So like I said, I don't want it. So if I think the point is each country has to come up with its own model. Okay. So if the Nepali model is to exclude rich people, you can find a criteria of excluding the rich people who don't need that 1,000 rupees at all. Okay. So you can find a way of doing it. That's what I would only say that. But we are talking about solidarity effects it has on in the society. That the other stigma part, which John mentioned, that you are seen as poor. There's a stigma that you are poor. So there are some countries where the food banks are created for the poor. So if you're going inside that, everybody knows that you are poor. It is also so humiliating. So do we want a society which is so humiliating? Okay. So they say that, okay, you have food coupons. You can come only on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock to this supermarket. So on that Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, when you stand there, everybody knows that you are poor. So we want to remove such stigmas in the society. Yeah.
I think there is something called honor. For example, if you exclude yourself from the benefit, there is something called honor in Nepal. Is it? I've read that. Similar to what Sharath is suggesting, it's called Give It Up scheme in India. People could exclude themselves on their own. So now that's where really universality is important. I mean, of course, in the UBI movement also there are differences. It's an evolving group of researchers. So I would still think that everybody should receive it. I mean, if people don't want to receive it, it's another matter. But it really removes all the targeting, and targeting is costly. And because of the decades of targeted welfare schemes, the public service delivery is inefficient. We see it right now. There is a lot of. I mean, if you take the I think the United Nations conducted a survey in Nepal around 2020-23 to see how many deserving, like let's say the government says this population can actually receive this, but how many who deserve are still receiving it. There's a lot of paperwork involved, right? You have to go to the officer and say, I check all these criteria, I'm eligible, but you might have to bribe, you might have to go to the government office 10 times. So now this universality cuts down on all of that. And second thing is, if we could, we are thinking about inflation so much, right? Like this meeting is so much going only into the economic side. Now let us also look at the social and psychological side. Like Sharad, like Guy is saying, the value of that money is not just the monetary value of that money. It has a social value, it has a psychological value. For example, in these brochures we've written what it could do. For example, in this pilot with the transgender persons, for example, traditionally are forced to do sex work or begging. That's the case. Now when they received the basic income, they were able to stop doing that for a while. Not completely go out of it, but they were able to stop doing it for a while. They had the choice to do it or not. Now in the same case, they are thrown out of the houses. If somebody says does not conform to the society's traditions, they're removed, right? In families, they're thrown out. Now these persons were able to send some of their money back to their family, and and they were able to have a familial relation again. Some people were able to go back to education. Now they are forced to do work, sex work or begging or whatever, and therefore people, if they want to study, they can't study because they don't have the luxury to study. Basic income gives you that space to take a pause if necessary. Take a pause, think about what you want to do, study if you want to, do whatever you want. Artists, for example, a lot of artists work is not valued in terms of monetary value. Now there are different advocates in the universal basic income movement itself, that this kind of work is recognized or not recognized by UBA, but at least they receive something. Like the massive populations who are being unpaid in the farm work, for example, especially the women. Imagine if they start receiving this money into their bank accounts directly. They will have the choice to whether spend it on their families, on their kids' education, send them to better schools, or save it, or maybe buy gold, and that could be a different form of saving. Or maybe it could change mobility. For example, one important story we keep sharing is in Hyderabad, in Work Free. There was one woman who is a tailor. So she would be involved in tailoring work, and she's otherwise also involved in domestic work. Her husband is self-employed, and once she's been asking her husband to buy a two-wheeler. A two-wheeler would help me go around with my tailoring work. I can deliver the finished pieces of cloth or get more business, etc. But the husband would always say, see, we can't afford this. Once this money started coming, we give 1,000 rupees per person, right? Which means in a family they would receive anywhere between 2,500 to 4,000-5,000 based on the size of the family. Now what they did is, she said, since we are getting this money, we will use this money as a EMI to buy the bike. The husband surprisingly said, let's do it, not necessarily with this money. We will use this money on kids' education, or we'll save this. I will take this step, and from our own earning, we will spend it on the bike. And she got the bike. Now, the idea is that this gives the security in the mind that I can do certain things. Now, they had this money in their earning, but they were not really able to think whether they could do it or not. But once they had this security, they were able to go forward and do it, and still use this money on something else. So the psychological, social, community effects, for example, communities have the space to fight for themselves also. But these slum communities, nobody really talks about their problems. They do not have good roads, no drainage system. They do not have primary Anganwadi centers, child care centers, for example. Now somebody has to go and fight for them. Now when they go fight for them, it costs money, right? You have to go to the government office, give representations in politicians' place, etc. Basic income, for example, in Hyderabad, gave that space for these social workers or the people to become leaders and go do this work, because they have some money that they have, that they could afford to do all of that. So there is a very rich
community social and community and social psychological output that's coming out of this.
The concept of universal necessary, yeah. Because you, as you said, you have identified transgender community, the housewife community who are not getting paid for all of that, right? So why don't you just focus on them, right? So what a person who is earning, say, 1 lakh per month, why are you also giving it to them when you've already identified who needs it the most? And maybe we could focus our resources on on better identifying who needs it, rather than giving it to everyone, right? Because in all of the examples you said, the slum people, all of that, we are targeting them by identifying them, right? So the universality of it all doesn't make sense in this context for me. Why would we do it universally if we have already identified the vulnerable communities?
Originally wanted to work basically with waste collectors, garbage collectors, because that is also one particular category of indecent work. So we should move towards decent works. Basically, that is it. So if we give them a basic income, we also, I mean, at that time we identified a list of because it's a pilot study. So basically, we wanted to either do with sex workers because that's also indecent work, or waste collectors or similar occupations. But sex workers, it was difficult because it's kind of a twilight zone of legality, so legal, illegal, and all that. So we chose the waste collectors. But then, if we go to a slum, we said that everybody in the slum will get, not just waste collectors. So there were 50% waste collectors and 50% other people were there. So, but we gave everybody. So that is the universal principle we have utilized, which means that basically when you say universal, unconditional, which is you don't have any means test. That is the whole basic definition. So as a philosophy, every human being should be entitled. That is the philosophy part. But when it comes to pilot, by the very nature of pilot, it has to be limited. So within that, we try to make it, so even the transgender community, government has some schemes of addressing transgender communities' welfare system. They basically try to create some income generation programs and all that, which actually don't work. So we have done this study with 10 people, essentially to see if this could be one option, policy option for the government to adopt. Whether they can say that, okay, if you are a transgender person, because of your vulnerability in the society, you will get X amount of money as government basic income. So we are suggesting to the governments that this is a better way of doing it rather than the kind of programs that you are implementing and they are not working. So we are providing a policy option to the government, basically. Yeah. But as a philosophy, yes, universal, it has to be universal. Everybody should be entitled to that. Like it's like having a voting right. Voting right is not targeted, no? Every 18-year-old and above will have a voting right. So, and there is no queue for the rich people, and then there's no VIP queue, and then everybody stands in the same queue and votes, isn't it? So it is a principle. Adult franchise is that everybody should have a voting right. There was a time in the past, I think voting right was given only to a few elite groups. It's only in the later in history that everybody should get a voting right. It become universal. So similarly, like that, you should have a right to certain income as long as you live in a cash economy. If you live in some other kind of economy, we will see what you can actually give people a basic. But then, as long as you have a cash economy, you have to. That's what our appeal is.
Communities who are not voting, and there are certain communities which are already voting despite us not doing anything. So we don't need to advocate the people who are already voting to go and vote because they will do it anyways. Versus there's a community of people who don't vote, and we need to encourage them to vote because their vote counts. In the same way, here is a community of people who are getting by pretty decently, versus here's a community of people who are not getting by decently, right? So instead of giving equal amount of, preference to both, why don't we, again, there is a little bit of problem, some may be excluded, but philosophically, I would also agree that universality is the best option, but in a practical sense, I don't think that's the way forward, because I don't think that would be the best case utilization of resources. Just as people who already know how to vote don't need to be reminded that they need to vote, the people who already have the money to live a good life don't need additional money to live a better life. Instead of that, maybe we could just like focus on this part of the community which does not have the resources to live a better life. Wouldn't that be more practical in the current scenario at least?
I think you are entitled. You are entitled to vote. Some people vote, some people don't vote. That is a different matter. So similarly, you are entitled to cash. Whether you actually want to take it or you want to give up is a different matter. The whole point is that what are the entitlements you are giving your citizens is a question. Like for example, in some countries, education is free till your university. It's an entitlement. You are entitled. Or for example, in the UK, the National Health Service is completely free. You don't have to pay a penny. It's as a citizen, it's your entitlement. Now there you can say that why can't rich people go and do it in the private, and why can't only poor people be given by the government? That's not the case. In fact, when I was unwell, I was admitted in the hospital in the UK. I mean, they did so many tests, and then I walked out without paying a single rupee. So that is the kind of a system that you have in many countries. So that is entitlement. Whether you use it or not, it's a different matter. So we are saying that you should have a society where you are entitled to some cash. That's all the appeal is. There will be practical difficulties. That is why I think in each country we are trying to do this conversation. That context is very important. I think this kind of, for example, in Nepal, a group of people come and make a proposal and say that we have a very good system of excluding the rich. Okay, you identify and say that everybody who owns a private four-wheeler means that that fellow has enough to eat, no? So if you say that they are excluded because all the data is digitized, everybody is now tracked, okay? You can say that. I mean, there's no harm in that. You can say that. Okay, government says that initially let us start with the bottom. For example, Rahul Gandhi when he announced the program in the last elections, he said, I'll give to the bottom 50%. I mean, that itself is a good step forward, isn't it? Like, for example, in Brazil, there is a program called Bolsa Familia, which means about 60 million families get money for children. Number of children you have, that much money you will get. That's a huge program. Similarly in Mexico. So they are almost unconditional. But then they said, in their constitution, they said that we will move towards a universal basic income. This is just the beginning. So we can have those steps. I think the political economy will find a way of defining what is feasible in that particular economy. But what we're saying that this is a kind of a template. This is a kind of what is a word called ideal type, kind of a model. We are saying if you have this model, you will have maximum effect. Doctor will prescribe to you that if you take all these medications according to my prescription, you will get well after 3 weeks. Okay? But you can say, no, I don't want to take that. We are just setting a norm. And then each country tries to find its own ways of dealing with it. And conversations have to happen, discussions have to happen. Some political parties will say something and the academics will say something. I think that is the kind of energy required. But what is undeniable is the fact that the future looks very bleak in terms of jobs and income insecurity. So we have to address it one way or the other. The traditional models of 20th century are not going to work. The welfare thinking of the 20th century are not going to work in the 21st century because we have new set of problems. We have to find new set of solutions also.
Yeah. Round of question. Let's take one. First thing is that, and if not, then what I want to propose here is that I know, some of you might be confused with the idea. It may not be feasible in the case of Nepal. You have doubt. I know that we all have, in some point of time, we have doubt about the things and something. And I again reiterate what I said earlier. It's something radical in a sense that we are not even thinking. We cannot even think this way, and everybody getting anything for free. So some reflection, some other things come in our mind. We know that. So for that matter, what we can do is and all of that, keeping all this idea at one point, one fact for sure is that we are being vulnerable day by day. We are becoming insecure day by day. That's for fact. And the things will be more worse in the days to come. Of course, some of us will be, some of you will have a better chance, but not all. That's the reality which we are facing. So in that phase, I think it will be a good idea for us to start thinking on this and group or something like that. So let's keep talking. So then only the things will change, right? So if we say that, oh, it's the problem and we don't do anything, then nothing will change. Maybe, I mean, and some of you might have even better idea than this to address the problem which are facing. So I think Sarat Bhai will also agree with me that so we can again come out with some better ideas than which we are discussing right now. It's not necessarily UBI. So let's keep on discussing. Let's keep our idea flowing. I think that's what give us the change. And again, I think one suggestion already came from Javier that while going for, this implementation thing, we need to see a global, solidarity also may be necessary. Then again, I'm request to Sarath Bhai that while you are saying these things, most of the concerns which came here are very valid. So how do we address that? That should be some thinking process should go on that. I think, and for that also, we also can think in that directions or some way to reflect that. So I think that having said that, I request you, if you all, again, depending on interest, I propose to have a small group. I'll circulate with email. If you are interested, please respond to that email. Then we can start having some conversations around these ideas. So definitely that will have something better for us. And that's what I believe. So that's with that proposal. I'll stop here. If you have any final comments, Sarath Bhai, Xavier, anyone, if you have any comments to give, John. So yeah, so I'll stop here.
Close with the idea of identification and targeting. For example, Nepal in 2016 took a $150 million amount from the World Bank to strengthen the social protection and create a social registry of who the poor people are in this country. And it was called Poor Household Identification Program with 40 criteria, including what is the level of education, floor and roof material of the house, what are the assets they have, if they have a TV, fridge, livestock, everything. Now, with such criteria, they have created to see whether people are poor or non-poor. In fact, one of the pictures I've showed, the first picture is when a social registry person went to the house to check if that person is poor or not. The son said, "Why should everybody know whether I'm poor or not?" So now it started in 2016. It's the project is still not over. In 2019, cards have been distributed. Some cards, and only 10% of the eligible have received the cards. Now the problem with this effort is really the more we try to identify, target and exclude, we will come up with criteria that could keep changing. If somebody owns a television, it could mean they're poor or not. If you come to in India, in every slum, you will definitely have a television. They say I'm surprised because they're very huge televisions, very huge. And when I go and ask, why do you have this? They say, after working so much, for me, entertainment is very important. That's their priority. People know what they want and they will spend where they want to spend. Basically, the criteria that the governments and we, all of us can, with the noblest of intentions, can come up and create the criteria, but that will not really show the fullest picture of who poor is and who is not poor. And in that direction, I think some of the principles that came about in this discussion are useful criteria to look whether unconditionality, universality, periodicity, giving it to the individual directly, giving it in cash. All these are useful ways to think about doing welfare in our countries. Thank you so much.
If you are going to identify poor or maybe somewhat wealthy, richer, something like that, what we find that in our society. One who is in the power, for example, ward, uh, ward chief or something, even their people will be more poor than the poorest. See, this is the situation here, uh, and the mentality. I'm not going to represent everybody, but some mentality is that whatever comes from whatever the project, they want to receive. They are receiver. We are receiver. So everything we can receive. This is the mentality. For example, I will place one example of Gatlang in Russia. Everybody knows that Gatlang has a very poor, was identified as more than 30 years as a poor village, where the roofs are made of wooden roofs. Okay? Still now the roofs are there because they want some money, some additional aids from China. China always gives them maybe food or something like Chinese community they provide. Then even the government of Nepal is providing. That means that mentality will not work here. What we are thinking about that. So the third party, what I suggest to have a pilot project anywhere, the third party will have to assign independently to whatever to have a basic data or something like that. I suggest, and I prefer this will be a pilot project in Nepal also. Thank you.
Of people that can promote basic income here in Nepal. So if you are able to put you together in this group, this will be the space to start answering many questions you have now in your mind. There is not time here to go through these many questions. That it will be interesting. You keep reflecting in this issue. Also, you can also together think how we are going to do to raise awareness in our society and bringing together the different stakeholders that can play a role. So this is what happened in my country and in other countries. And also at that time you could say, okay, do we need something like a kind of pilot project to start knowing more how this will go in our society? And something I wanted to contribute to you, I think it would be important that you are not limited to watching or thinking about Nepal, because there is now a full worldwide experience in 45 countries. So how you connect with these countries, especially in southern in Asia Pacific? Okay, you have this new resource there, John Mitchell from BN. Okay, what we can learn from other countries, for example, from this state in Hyderabad where they have already worked, and you can visit and go there, talk with the people. Okay, if has progressed this way in India, perhaps we can do something also here. And also, every year there is a global congress of the BN network, and next year will be in Brazil. This year was in England. It was good for me because I could pay myself for joining them in this World Congress, and it gives a great space to exchange with people and to know about. But you have to keep yourself organized. If next year in Brazil you want to send somebody, you need to get, for example, some support. You can get some sponsors support here or for going to other countries in Asia Pacific. Also, perhaps in BN, I don't know if, because there were, for example, in England, 400 people there. So there is no way to pay for all these people to come. It would be too costly. But some people in their own networks, in their own countries, they can pay for it. And even perhaps step by step, this global network can provide also some support to people to come. But basically, from the country itself, if you organize yourself and say, okay, how we could learn from the expertise in India, wherever, or how we could participate. So this is not going to be a very huge amount of funding you need. And if you organize, probably you can get somebody to support you in paying for this type of cost. But this is what has been happening in other countries. Just some ideas for you at the very beginning of this issue here in Nepal.
In fact, one is that universal basic income is being proposed as one policy option, as a one solution. Okay, but what is the problem? Because we should know what is the problem it is going to solve. I think the real discussion has to happen about the problem, and that problem is today what is the kind of income insecurity that is there in the country, and what are the ways in which we have to solve that problem, because that is only going to become more and more worse and worse in future. So I think we are recording this thing basically to put together a kind of what kind of discussion we have had here. So we will come back with summary so that we can identify what kind of Nepal specific questions that have come, and we can continue the discussion. So I think the issue, we should not forget that we should see how we understand, how government understands the whole question of income insecurity, and who government thinks is eligible for government support. That also we should see. Is it a very traditional way of thinking, or is there a new way of thinking? Because the problems are new, so the ways of looking also have to be new. So I close there, and thank you very much for coming. And I feel that we should continue this conversation. And John and Ram and myself, we will continue in seeing what ways, online, offline. I think in all these places we have created small groups of people who are interested, economists and sociologists and NGO people. So maybe a small group can actually work on some kind of what is the issue and what are the solutions. If you are interested, I think we can continue. Thank you so much.